There's an old idea hidden in nearly every ancient culture, from the mountains of Tibet to the libraries of Greece, that the people who speak the least often understand the most. And when you look closely at the real world today, not the loud world of social media, but the real world where decisions compound across decades, you notice something surprising. Quiet people often end up wealthy. Not because they're smarter or luckier, but because they live by principles that are older than the systems we use to measure wealth, principles that survived wars, kingdoms, empires, resets, and technological revolutions, principles that don't fade when trends change, principles passed down not through speeches, but through silence. Today, I want to share why ancient wisdom has always favored the quiet, and why in a world drowning in noise, the quiet path might be the strongest path left. When I say quiet people, I'm not talking about introverts or socially shy individuals or people who avoid crowds. I'm talking about people who can create internal quietness, the ability to think when everyone else reacts, to observe when everyone else speaks, to pause when everyone else rushes, and to commit when everyone else hesitates. This is the kind of quietness ancient teachers admired, not the silence of weakness, but the silence of direction. And in many ways, wealth, real, long-term wealth, grows from that same kind of silence. Because here's the first truth people miss. Noise pushes you toward what is popular. Silence allows you to see what is true. Spend one day listening to the world around you. Buy this now. Act fast. This is your moment. Everyone is doing it. Noise pressures decisions. Noise speeds them up. Noise makes people believe that opportunity expires after 3 minutes, but think about the people you know who have built something meaningful, financially or otherwise. Think about the calm entrepreneur who worked slowly for years before finally breaking through. Think about the long-term investor who made consistent decisions while everyone else chased headlines. Think about the craftsman who honed one skill until it became the foundation of his entire life. They weren't guided by noise. They weren't influenced by the crowd. They weren't moved by urgency manufactured by others. They were guided by a deeper rhythm, one that is slower, quieter, more intentional. Ancient philosophies taught that the world is full of illusions that disappear the moment you touch them. And in many ways, modern society is built entirely out of those illusions. The illusion of overnight success, the illusion of sudden wealth, the illusion that someone else knows the secret shortcut. You don't. Quiet people break those illusions because they don't chase them. They step back far enough to see the pattern behind the noise. They see that everything that looks urgent usually isn't. Everything that looks complicated usually isn't. Everything that looks glamorous usually isn't. Their quietness gives them clarity. And clarity, real clarity, is a form of wealth on its own. But the second reason quiet people often become wealthy is patience, not forced patience, not motivational poster patience, but natural patience that comes from understanding time differently. Ancient wisdom didn't see time as a clock ticking. It saw time as a landscape, something you move across, not something that chases you. Quiet people don't feel rushed because they're not in competition with anyone. They move at the pace of understanding, not excitement. And this matters, because wealth is built at the pace of patience, not speed. Most people make rushed decisions because they want fast results. They want the return today, the validation today, the success today. But quiet people make slower decisions because they're thinking about tomorrow, next year, and 10 years from now. The modern world rewards quick visibility, but the real world rewards quiet accumulation. Every ancient culture had stories about the person who planted a tree whose shade they would never sit under. It sounds poetic, even idealistic, but it's actually one of the strongest wealth principles you can follow. Do something today that pays you long after today is over. Quiet people tend to align with that principle naturally. They aren't addicted to instant results. They don't need applause for every small step. They don't need to look like they're winning in order to feel secure, because they aren't playing a performative game. They're playing a long game. And wealth, Real wealth belongs to those willing to play long games. There's another reason quiet people often become wealthy, and it's something few people talk about. They make fewer emotional mistakes. Think back to any major financial collapse, market panic, or economic craze. The loudest voices were almost always the ones most afraid, the ones shouting predictions, the ones spreading certainty, the ones selling confidence they didn't actually have. Quiet people don't move that way. They don't need to express every thought. They don't need others to validate their decisions. They don't confuse noise with knowledge. And because their emotions stay steadier, their decisions stay steadier. Ancient philosophers said, "A person who masters their emotions becomes impossible to conquer." In financial terms, a person who masters their emotions becomes impossible to manipulate. Marketing can't rush them. Trends can't pull them. Fear can't freeze them. Greed can't blind them. They have emotional independence, and emotional independence leads to financial independence. But perhaps the most overlooked reason quiet people become wealthy is this: they focus their energy inward, not outward. Think about how much energy people waste trying to appear successful, trying to impress others, trying to keep up, trying to compete, trying to show progress, trying to build an identity based on perception, not reality. Quiet people don't invest energy that way. They invest it into building, learning, refining, creating, improving. And that accumulated internal focus eventually shows up externally and often dramatically. Ancient monks measured wealth not by accumulation, but by alignment. Were your actions aligned with your values? Were your choices aligned with your direction? Were your efforts aligned with your purpose? Quiet people can hear that alignment more clearly because they are not drowned in the noise of comparison. And when your life is aligned, consistency becomes natural. And when consistency is natural, compounding becomes inevitable. Another reason ancient wisdom favors the quiet is because quietness leaves room for observation. And observation is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence. Quiet people notice details. They see patterns in human behavior. They catch inconsistencies in stories. They remember small lessons. They reflect instead of reacting. This makes their decision-making sharper. It helps them avoid traps. It helps them understand people. It helps them notice opportunities others overlook. There's a common stereotype that quiet people are passive. But in reality, many of the world's strongest decision-makers are quiet simply because they know the power of a well-timed action. They don't act often, but when they do, they act decisively. And when you combine decisiveness with patience, clarity, emotional discipline, and internal alignment, you get a person who naturally builds wealth, even if that was never their primary goal. Ancient wisdom has always taught that greatness is built in silence and revealed in time. The seed grows underground before it breaks the surface. The foundation is laid before the walls take shape. The understanding comes before the reward. Quiet people operate in that invisible space. They do the invisible work. They take the invisible steps, and eventually their results become visible in ways that seem sudden, but were never sudden at all. In a world obsessed with being noticed, quiet people become powerful precisely because they aren't trying to be noticed. Their focus protects them. Their discipline guides them. Their silence grounds them. And there's one final truth that ancient wisdom whispers. The loud chase wealth for recognition. The quiet build wealth for freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from urgency. Freedom from pretending. Freedom from noise. Freedom to walk their own path without explaining it to anyone. And in the end, that is the true form of wealth. Not the number, not the status, not the applause, but the ability to live life without needing noise to justify it. So the question isn't whether you should be quiet or loud. The question is whether you want your life shaped by noise or shaped by clarity. Ancient wisdom has its answer. Quietness is not the opposite of strength. Quietness is the foundation of it, and if you learn to cultivate that quiet, to find it, to hold it, to listen to it, you may discover that the path to wealth was never complicated. It was simply quiet.